The second wave of Vorthon bioships came at the human fleet with something they had never experienced before in their centuries of conquest. Caution. The destruction of their lead vessel had sent shockwaves through their hive mind network, and, for the first time, they approached an enemy with uncertainty rather than overwhelming confidence. Admiral Morrison watched the tactical display as hundreds of alien ships formed attack formations around his small fleet. The humans were outnumbered by more than 50 to 1, but he could see hesitation in the enemy movements. They were trying to understand how their ship had been destroyed so completely. "Admiral," Captain Chang called from her station, "the Vorthons are spreading out trying to surround us. They're keeping their distance and charging weapons from multiple angles. They're learning from what just happened." "Good," Morrison replied. "Let them learn. Turner, target the UES Freedom's missile systems on that cluster of ships off our starboard side. Blake, are your Marines ready for boarding actions?" Colonel Blake's voice came through from the Marine transport ship. "Ready and eager, sir. My people have been studying the interior layouts of these bioships from our sensor data. We think we've identified their control centers." The Vorthon ships opened fire first, sending streams of bioplasma energy across space toward the human vessels. The organic weapons were designed to drain power from enemy ships and corrupt their metal hulls, turning the very structure of a vessel against itself. It was a terrifying weapon that had destroyed countless civilizations across the galaxy, but the human ships had been built on a world where everything tried to kill everything else. Their armor was layered steel and ceramic composites designed to stop projectiles, not absorb energy. The bioplasma splashed harmlessly across their hulls like water hitting stone. "No damage reported from any ship," Turner announced. "Sir, their weapons can't penetrate our armor." Morrison smiled grimly. "Return fire, all ships full spread, show them what real weapons look like." The human fleet unleashed hell. Railguns fired tungsten slugs at incredible speeds, punching holes through bioship hulls that no amount of regeneration could repair. Missile systems launched nuclear warheads that turned entire Vorthon vessels into expanding balls of plasma. Most terrifying of all were the directed nuclear charges. Focused atomic explosions that vaporized everything within a kilometer radius. Ambassador Kretal watched from his damaged refugee ship as the human vessels carved through Vorthon formations, like predators among prey. "This is impossible," he whispered to his communication officer Teelan. "The Vorthons have conquered half the galaxy. How are these humans making it look so easy?" "They fight like nothing I have ever seen," Teelan replied, her crystalline form pulsing with awe. "Their weapons do not try to disable or capture. They are designed for one purpose only: complete destruction." The UES Freedom moved through a cluster of bioships, its missile systems firing continuously. Each nuclear warhead that found its target removed another Vorthon vessel from existence in a flash of atomic fire. Captain Greg Norton, commanding the Freedom, watched his tactical display with professional satisfaction. "Target-rich environment," he commented to his weapons officer. "These things might be tough against energy weapons, but they burn just fine when you hit them with nuclear fire." Commander Pete Davis led the first boarding party from the UES Defiance onto a damaged Vorthon command ship. The Marines wore full, environmental suits and carried weapons that would have seemed primitive to most galactic species: chemical propellant rifles, explosive charges, and simple metal blades for close combat. "Remember your briefing," Davis told his team as they cut through the bioship's hull. "These things are networked. Find the neural control centers and destroy them. Don't try to capture anything. Don't try to study anything. Just kill it and move on." Inside the Vorthon ship, the Marines found a nightmare landscape of organic corridors that pulsed like living tissue. The walls sweated acidic fluid that could eat through normal materials. But the human environmental suits had been designed for work in Earth's most hostile environments. The Vorthon crew were tall, insectoid creatures with multiple arms and compound eyes. They had never faced enemies who used projectile weapons, and their chitinous armor provided no protection against bullets fired at high velocity. Marine Sergeant Lisa Park put 3-round center mass into the first alien she encountered and watched it drop without ceremony. "These things don't fight like soldiers," she reported over the comm. "They're like bugs. They just keep coming even when they're hurt." Davis and his team found the ship's neural center, a pulsing mass of organic computers that controlled the vessel's functions. Without hesitation, he placed shaped charges around the biological machinery and signaled his team to retreat. "Fire in the hole," he announced, and the explosion turned the command center into organic debris. Throughout the bioship, systems began failing as the hive-mind connection was severed. Back on the UES Valiant, Admiral Morrison watched as more Vorthan ships began to retreat from the battle. The alien fleet that had seemed so overwhelming just hours before was now broken and scattered, their ships fleeing toward the edge of the system. "Sir," Turner reported, "I'm reading massive energy spikes from the retreating Vorthan ships. They're charging their quantum drives. It looks like they're preparing to leave the system entirely." Captain Chang looked up from her tactical display with amazement. "Admiral, we've destroyed or disabled over 600 enemy vessels. The remaining ships are in full retreat. Sir, I think we won." Ambassador Kretal's voice came through the comm, filled with wonder and disbelief. "Admiral Morrison, is it true? Are the Vorthans really retreating? In 300 years of conquest, they have never retreated from any battle." Morrison stood up and walked to the main view screen, watching the dark shapes of bioships disappearing into quantum space. Around the system, the debris of destroyed Vorthan vessels floated like a monument to the galaxy's first real victory against the Horde. "Ambassador, the Vorthans just learned something important about the universe," Morrison replied. "They learned that not every species in the galaxy evolved on a nice, safe world where the biggest problem is deciding what to have for dinner." Colonel Blake's voice crackled through the comm from one of the captured bioships. "Admiral, my teams have secured 3 intact Vorthan vessels. The technology is incredible, but sir, what we found in their databanks is going to interest you. These ships have star charts showing Vorthan military positions throughout this entire sector of the galaxy." Morrison felt a cold smile cross his face. The Vorthans had retreated, but this was far from over. An empire built on terrorizing peaceful species would not give up after one defeat. But now humanity had something they had never possessed before: accurate intelligence about their enemies' positions and capabilities. "Blake, secure all data and prepare those ships for transport back to Earth," Morrison ordered. "Chang, signal the fleet. We're not done here yet." Admiral Morrison looked out at the stars, knowing that humanity had just taken its first step onto the galactic stage. The Vorthans had spent centuries building an empire of fear and death. Today they had met something they had never encountered before, a species that was better at violence than they were. The age of easy conquest was over. The Death Worlders had arrived, and they were very good at their job. The human fleet dropped out of quantum space at the edge of the Zephyrian system, like ships emerging from a nightmare. The UES Valiant, UES Freedom, and UES Defiance materialized in normal space with their escort vessels, their dark hulls reflecting the light of an alien sun. Admiral Morrison felt his stomach settle as the quantum drive effects wore off, but his sense of unease only grew stronger as he saw what waited for them. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Alex Turner from the sensor station, his face pale as he read the incoming data. "Sir, I'm picking up massive energy signatures throughout the system, and the debris fields are enormous." The main screen flickered to life, showing the Zephyrian home system in all its horror. What should have been a peaceful collection of planets and space stations was now a graveyard. Pieces of destroyed ships floated everywhere, some still glowing from recent battles. In the distance, they could see the dark shapes of Vorthan bioships moving between the planets like giant insects feeding on a corpse. Captain Lisa Chang worked frantically at her tactical station, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. "Admiral, I'm counting at least 15 destroyed space habitats. Each one could have held millions of people. And sir, I'm reading active combat on the 4th planet. Energy weapons fire. Massive explosions." Morrison gripped the armrest of his command chair as the reality of the situation hit him. They had traveled over 200 light years to help an alien species, but they might already be too late. "Turner, give me numbers. How many Vorthan ships are we looking at?" "Scanning now, sir," Turner replied, his hands flying over his controls. "I'm detecting over 3,000 distinct vessels. They're unlike anything in our databases. The ships appear to be biological in nature, like living creatures rather than constructed vessels. Each one is roughly the size of our cruisers, but their energy signatures are off the charts. The communication console chirped with an incoming signal, and Lieutenant Kelly Roberts looked up with surprise. "Admiral, we're being hailed. The signal is coming from a damaged vessel near the third planet. It's using the same frequency as the original distress call." "Put it through," Morrison ordered. The screen filled with the image of Ambassador Cretal, though he looked very different from the confident diplomat who had sent the original message. His crystalline body was cracked and dim, and his voice carried the weight of unimaginable loss. "Human vessels," Cretal said, his words translated by the ship's computers. "You came. The Deathworlders actually came. I confess I did not believe you would respond to our call for help." Morrison leaned forward in his chair. "Ambassador Cretal, I'm Admiral Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Forces. We received your distress signal and came as quickly as we could. What's the current situation?" Cretal's form pulsed with what might have been hope, but also deep sadness. "Admiral Morrison, I am grateful beyond words, but you must understand what you face. The Vorthans have been attacking our system for 12 days now. They have destroyed 7 of our 9 worlds. Over 40 billion of my people are dead." The bridge of the Valiant fell silent as the crew absorbed those numbers. 40 billion dead in less than 2 weeks. The entire population of Earth was only 8 billion people. "Their ships regenerate damage almost instantly," Cretal continued. "Our energy weapons have little effect on their biological hulls. They seem to actually feed on the power we use against them. And Admiral, there are so many of them. Even if you could destroy 10 ships for every one you lose, you would still be overwhelmed." Colonel Blake's voice came through the comm from the marine transport ship UES Freedom. "Admiral, I'm seeing the tactical data from our sensors. These Vorthan ships don't move like anything we've ever fought. They twist and bend like living things. Our targeting computers are having trouble getting locks on them." Captain Chang looked up from her station with concern written across her face. "Sir, the enemy vessels are changing course. They've detected us and they're moving to intercept. I'm reading energy buildups on over 200 ships. They're preparing to attack." Morrison stood up and activated the fleet-wide communication system. His voice echoed through every human ship in the system. "All vessels, this is Admiral Morrison. We came here to stop a genocide. We knew we'd be outnumbered, and we knew it would be dangerous. But look around you. Look at what these creatures have done to an entire civilization." On the screen, Cretal watched with amazement as the human admiral continued his speech. "The Vorthans think they're the apex predators of the galaxy. They've spent centuries destroying peaceful species who couldn't fight back. Today they learn what happens when they pick a fight with Deathworlders." Turner called out from his station. "Admiral, the lead Vorthan ships are in weapons range. Energy signatures are spiking across their entire formation. All ships, battle, stations," Morrison ordered. "Chang, I want a full tactical analysis of their weapons and defenses. Blake, prepare your Marines for boarding actions. Roberts, maintain communications with Ambassador Cretal. If we're going to save his people, we need to know everything about these Vorthans." The first wave of Vorthan bioships approached the human formation with the confidence of predators who had never met anything they couldn't kill. Their dark, chitinous hulls reflected no light, making them look like holes in space itself. Organic weapons pods along their sides began to glow with malevolent energy. "Sir," Chang reported, "their weapons appear to be some kind of bioplasma discharge. Very different from our energy weapons. And Admiral, their ships are communicating with each other through some kind of organic network. They're coordinated, like a hive mind." Ambassador Cretal's voice came through the comm again, filled with desperate worry. "Admiral Morrison, you must flee now while you still can. The Vorthans show no mercy and take no prisoners. Your ships are brave to come here, but courage alone cannot defeat them." Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were people who had trained their entire lives for moments like this. They had joined Earth's defense forces, knowing they might one day have to put their lives on the line to protect others. Today, those others just happened to live on a different world under an alien sun. "Ambassador," Morrison replied, "with respect, you don't know much about humans. We didn't come here to run away. Turner, give me a target analysis on the nearest. Fourth in ship. Aye, sir. Target designated Alpha 1, range 50,000 kilometers and closing. It's charging what appears to be a primary weapon system. Morrison smiled grimly as he settled back into his command chair. All ships, weapons free. Let's show the galaxy why Earth is called a death world. Valiant, target Alpha 1, with main, railguns. Full spread. The UES Valiant's primary weapons were 3 massive railguns that could accelerate tungsten projectiles to over 10% of light speed. They had been designed to destroy asteroids that might threaten Earth, but they worked just as well on alien warships. The tungsten slugs crossed the distance between the ships in less than a second. The Vorthon vessel, expecting energy weapons that it could absorb or deflect, was completely unprepared for solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The slugs punched through its biological hull like bullets through paper, sending chunks of alien flesh spinning into space. Direct hit, Turner announced with amazement. Sir, that ship is dead. Its energy signature just went to 0. Ambassador Kretal stared at his screen in shock. Impossible. How did you destroy a Vorthon ship? So quickly? Our most powerful weapons barely scratched them. Morrison keyed the comm to address both his fleet and the Zephyrian survivors. That's the difference between energy weapons and kinetic weapons, Ambassador. You can't regenerate from having holes punched clean through you. The Great Council chamber of the Galactic Federation buzzed with worried voices as hundreds of alien species gathered for an emergency meeting. Ambassador Kretal of the Zephyrian people stood at the center podium, his crystalline body shaking with fear and desperation. His normally bright blue light had dimmed to a pale flicker, showing how scared he truly was. Honored council members, Kretal began, his voice cracking through the translation devices. My people are dying. The Vorthon horde has entered our home system and they show no mercy to anyone they find. The chamber fell silent. Every being present knew about the Vorthons. They were the nightmare that parents across the galaxy told their children about to make them behave. For over 300 years, the Vorthon horde had swept through space like a plague, consuming entire worlds and leaving nothing behind but empty rocks floating in the void. Council Chairman Veltar, a tall gray being from the Altarian Commonwealth, leaned forward in his floating chair. His large black eyes showed concern but also the cold calculation of politics. Ambassador Kretal, we understand your pain, but the Federation has strict rules about getting involved in conflicts between different species. This is not a conflict, Kretal cried out, his crystal form flashing brighter with anger. This is murder on a scale you cannot imagine. The Vorthans do not want our territory or our resources. They want to watch us die. They enjoy it. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as delegates whispered among themselves. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as the most peaceful people anyone had ever met. They had never fought a war, never built weapons of destruction, never even raised their voices in anger. If someone wanted to hurt the Zephyrians, it could only be for the love of causing pain. Our defense fleets tried to stop them, Kretal continued, his voice becoming quieter as he remembered the horror. We had 27 ships protecting our homeworld. The Vorthons destroyed them all in less than 10 minutes. Our weapons could not even scratch their hulls. Councillor Zephyra from the Epsilon Republic stood up, her tentacles waving with emotion. Surely there must be something we can do. The Zephyrians have been part of our Federation for over 200 years. They have helped us all in times of need. Chairman Veltar shook his head slowly. The Federation military exists only to keep peace between member species. We are not equipped to fight a war against the Vorthon horde. Their technology is beyond anything we understand. Then what would you have us do? Kretal asked, his voice breaking. Should we simply wait to die? Should we tell our children that the Great Galactic Federation could not help them because of rules written in comfortable meeting rooms? The chairman looked uncomfortable. Everyone in the chamber knew he was right, but nobody wanted to admit it. The Federation was good at many things, but fighting wars was not one of them. They had built their civilization on trade, diplomacy, and peaceful cooperation. The idea of violence on the scale needed to stop the Vorthons was something they could not even imagine. There might be one option, Kretal said quietly, and the entire chamber strained to hear him. Though I am ashamed to even suggest it. What option? Asked Veltar. Kretal's crystal body pulsed with a dim, sickly light. The Deathworlders. From Sol 3. The humans. A shocked silence fell over the chamber. Several delegates made sounds of disgust or fear. The humans were barely known to the galaxy, having only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. But the stories about them had spread quickly through space. They came from a planet so dangerous that most galactic species would die within hours of stepping foot on it. A world where the very air could kill you, where the weather could destroy entire cities, where the plants and animals spent their entire lives trying to murder each other. You cannot be serious, Veltar said, his voice filled with horror. The humans are savages. They still fight wars against their own kind. They have not even learned to live in peace on their own world. They have weapons, Kretal replied. Real weapons. Weapons designed to kill and destroy, not like our energy shields and stunning rays. They build machines whose only purpose is death. Counselor Thexan from the Rigel Systems stood up, his forearms waving frantically. The humans are not even a recognized species in our databases. They have no diplomatic status, no trade agreements, no cultural exchange programs. They are barely more advanced than primitives. Primitives who split atoms to make explosions, Kretal said quietly. Primitives who shoot metal objects faster than sound to kill their enemies. Primitives who have turned warfare into a science. The debate continued for hours, but Kretal could see that most of the council was too afraid to even consider asking the humans for help. They talked about diplomatic protocols, about the dangers of involving an unknown species in galactic affairs, about the risk of making the situation worse. But they did not talk about the billions of Zephyrian lives that were being lost while they argued. As the session ended with no decision being made, Kretal returned to his small ship orbiting the Federation capital world. His communication officer, a young Zephyrian named Teelan, looked at him with hope in her crystalline eyes. Did the council agree to help us? She asked. Kretal dimmed his light sadly. No. They are too afraid to act. Then what do we do now? Kretal moved to the communication console and began typing coordinates into the system. We do what we should have done in the first place. We ask for help from someone who knows how to fight. You mean the humans? Teelan asked, her voice filled with worry. But Ambassador, the stories about them are terrifying. They say humans can kill with their bare hands, that they drink poison for pleasure, that their entire planet is covered in weapons. Perhaps that is exactly what we need, Kretal replied as he finished entering the coordinates for the Sol system. The Vorthons have killed 17 billion of our people in the last week. If we must choose between death and asking monsters for help, then I choose the monsters. The message was simple and direct, transmitted on frequencies that their scouts had detected coming from the human homeworld. It contained star charts showing the location of the Zephyrian system, tactical data about Vorthon fleet movements, and a desperate plea for help from a species facing extinction. As the signal raced through space toward Earth, Kretal wondered if he had just made a terrible mistake. But as reports continued to arrive of more Zephyrian worlds being destroyed, he knew that any chance was better than no chance at all. The Deathworlders would either save his people or destroy them. But at least they would not have to wait helplessly for death to find them. The signal from space arrived at Earth Defense Command headquarters in Colorado at exactly 3:47 a.m. local time. The massive facility, built deep inside a mountain, hummed with activity as computers and artificial intelligence systems worked together to decode the alien transmission. Admiral Jake Morrison had been asleep in his quarters when the call came. As the head of Earth's Space Defense Forces, he was used to being woken up at strange hours, but this was different. This was the call everyone had been waiting for since humanity first looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. "Sir, you need to see this," said Lieutenant Kelly Roberts, the night shift communications officer. Her hands shook slightly as she handed him the translated message. Our computers have been working on it for 6 hours, but we're confident the translation is accurate. Morrison read the message 3 times before he fully understood what he was looking at. An alien species called the Zephyrians was being wiped out by something called the Vorthon Horde. They were asking Earth for military help. They had somehow learned that humans were warriors and were desperate enough to contact a species they had never met before. How many people know about this? Morrison asked. Just the translation team and the senior staff who have clearance for first contact scenarios, Roberts replied. We followed protocol and kept it classified until you could review it. Morrison nodded and activated his secure communication device. Within minutes, his senior officers were rushing to the command center, some still putting on their uniforms as they arrived. Captain Lisa Chang, his tactical officer, arrived first. She had been born in California, but her parents had come from China. She was known throughout the fleet as someone who could analyze any military situation and find a way to win. Admiral, is this really happening? Are we actually getting a message from aliens asking for help? It looks that way, Morrison replied. What do you make of the tactical data they sent? Chang studied the star charts and fleet positions on the main screen. Sir, if this information is accurate, we're looking at a military force of incredible size. The enemy has over 3,000 ships and they've been destroying entire planets. The aliens asking for help, these Zephyrians, their technology seems to be mostly defensive. Energy shields, stunning weapons, things designed to stop fights rather than win them. Colonel Ryan Blake arrived next, still putting on his combat boots. As head of the Marine Corps Space Division, he had trained for the possibility of alien contact, but never expected it to happen like this. Admiral, how do we know this isn't some kind of trap? Maybe these Vorthons are testing us to see how we respond to threats. Morrison had been wondering the same thing. That's possible, Colonel, but look at this data. The level of detail in these star charts, the tactical information, the desperation in the message itself. Either this is real, or someone has put together the most elaborate deception in human history. Dr. Susan White, the head of xenobiology, rushed in carrying a tablet full of analysis data. Admiral, I've been studying the biological information they included about themselves and their attackers. The Zephyrians appear to be silicon-based life forms, completely unlike anything on Earth. The Vorthons seem to be some kind of hive mind species. The complexity of this information would be impossible to fake. Morrison walked to the large window that looked out over the command center floor. Hundreds of technicians worked at their stations, monitoring Earth's defenses and tracking objects in space. None of them knew that humanity had just received its first request for help from another species. Gentlemen, ladies, Morrison said, turning back to his officers, I want options. If this is real, if there really is a species being wiped out, and they're asking us for help, what can we do about it? Colonel Blake spoke first. Sir, the distance alone makes this almost impossible. They're over 200 light years away. Even with our newest quantum drive systems, it would take weeks to get there. And we have no idea what kind of weapons or defenses these Vorthons have. Our ships weren't designed for this kind of mission, added Captain Chang. We built our fleet to defend Earth and maybe fight battles in our own solar system. Going to another star system to fight an unknown enemy is completely outside our planning. Chief Engineer Paul Martinez had been quietly studying the technical data. Actually, sir, it might be possible. The quantum drives on our newest Dreadnoughts were designed for long-range exploration missions. We could modify them for this distance. It would be risky and we'd be operating at the very limits of the technology, but it could work. Morrison felt the weight of the decision settling on his shoulders. Humanity had dreamed of meeting alien species for centuries, but nobody had imagined it would happen like this. The first contact would not be a peaceful meeting of minds, but a desperate call for military help. What about our weapons? Morrison asked. How would our technology compare to what they're describing? Colonel Blake smiled grimly. Sir, from what I'm reading here, both sides are using energy-based weapons. Plasma cannons, particle beams, electromagnetic pulse devices. We use some of that technology, but our primary weapons are still kinetic. Railguns, missile systems, good old-fashioned explosives. If these aliens have never encountered projectile weapons, they might not have developed defenses against them. Dr. White looked concerned. Admiral, we should consider the possibility that we might make things worse. If we show up with weapons they've never seen before, we could escalate the conflict beyond what anyone can control. Doctor, according to this message, the conflict is already beyond control, Morrison replied. These Zephyrians are facing extinction. How much worse can it get? The debate continued for several hours as more experts were brought in to analyze every aspect of the alien message. Linguists confirmed the translation was accurate. Military analysts studied the tactical situation. Engineers calculated what modifications would be needed to send a fleet across interstellar distances. Finally, Morrison made his decision. We're going to help them. Prep the UES Valiant, UES Freedom, and UES Defiance for immediate departure. Full battle groups, our best ships and our best crews. Captain Chang looked worried. Sir, that's almost half our fleet. If this goes badly, Earth's defenses will be seriously weakened. If we don't help them, we'll have to live with the knowledge that we let an entire species die when we could have done something about it, Morrison replied. Besides, if these Vorthans are as dangerous as they seem, Earth might be next on their list anyway. The next 72 hours were a blur of activity, as Earth's most powerful warships prepared for humanity's first interstellar military mission. Engineers worked around the clock to modify the quantum drives for the longer journey. Marines loaded weapons and equipment designed for fighting in space. Medical teams prepared for treating both human and alien casualties. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Valiant as the final preparations were completed. Through the view screen, he could see the other ships in his fleet, their hulls gleaming in the light of the sun. In a few hours, they would jump to quantum space and begin humanity's journey to the stars. Admiral, said Lieutenant Roberts from the communication station, we're receiving a final update from the Zephyrians. The situation is getting worse. They've lost 3 more colonies in the past day. Morrison nodded grimly. Signal the fleet. All ships prepare for quantum jump. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity can do. 3 days after the battle, the Zephyrian system was a very different place. The dark clouds of smoke that had hung over burning planets were beginning to clear, and the debris fields left by centuries of Vorthon raids were being cleaned up by human engineering teams. Admiral Morrison stood on the observation deck of the UES Valiant, watching his crews work alongside Zephyrian survivors to restore what could be saved. The human fleet had grown larger since the battle ended. Ships from the Galactic Federation had finally arrived, though they came too late to help with the fighting. Chairman Veltar of the Altarian Commonwealth had sent a full diplomatic mission, along with medical ships and supply vessels to help with the cleanup effort. Admiral Morrison, came a familiar voice behind him. Ambassador Kretal approached, his crystalline form now glowing with healthy blue light, instead of the dim flicker of desperation he had shown during the crisis. I wanted to thank you personally before the Federation officials arrived for the formal ceremony. Morrison turned to face the alien diplomat. Over the past few days, he had come to respect Kretal's courage and determination. It took incredible bravery to contact an unknown species for military help, especially when that species had a reputation as violent deathworlders. Ambassador, your people fought bravely with what they had, Morrison replied. We just had different tools for the job. Different tools, Kretal repeated, his voice carrying what might have been amusement. Admiral, your people destroyed the most feared military force in the galaxy in less than 6 hours. The Vorthon horde had been expanding for over 3 centuries. Most species in the galaxy believed they were unstoppable. Lieutenant Kelly Roberts appeared at Morrison's shoulder, carrying a data pad with the latest intelligence reports. Sir, Colonel Blake's analysis teams have finished going through the captured Vorthon databanks. The information we found is going to change everything. Morrison took the pad and read through the summary. The Vorthons had detailed records of every species they had conquered, every world they had destroyed, and every military force they had faced. But more importantly, they had complete star charts showing the location of every Vorthon base and staging area in this region of the galaxy. How many species have they wiped out completely? Morrison asked. Roberts's face was grim. Over 200 confirmed extinctions, sir, and the data suggests they were just getting started. They had plans to expand into Federation space within the next 50 years. Ambassador Kreetl's light dimmed slightly as he processed this information. 200 species. Admiral, my people's suffering was just a small part of a much larger tragedy. Morrison nodded grimly. Which is why we're not stopping here. Ambassador, the Vorthons retreated, but they didn't surrender. As long as their empire exists, they'll be a threat to every peaceful species in the galaxy. The sound of approaching footsteps announced the arrival of Chairman Veltar and his diplomatic escort. The tall gray leader of the Galactic Federation looked very different from the confident politician who had refused to help the Zephyrians just weeks before. His large black eyes showed a mixture of gratitude and barely concealed fear. Admiral Morrison, Veltar said, his words carefully chosen. On behalf of the Galactic Federation Council, I want to express our deepest gratitude for your intervention in this crisis. The Zephyrian people are alive today because of your courage and sacrifice. Morrison studied the Federation chairman's face, reading the political calculations behind his words. Chairman, I appreciate the thanks, but let's be honest about what happened here. The Federation had the chance to help the Zephyrians and chose not to. If humanity hadn't responded to their distress call, an entire species would have been wiped out while your council debated diplomatic protocols. Veltar shifted uncomfortably, his elongated fingers tapping nervously against his ceremonial robes. Admiral, you must understand that the Federation operates under very specific rules about military intervention. We cannot simply attack other species without following proper procedures. Even when those species are committing genocide? Morrison asked. The situation was more complex than it appeared, Veltar replied, but his voice lacked conviction. Captain Lisa Chang joined the group, carrying tactical reports from the ongoing investigation of Vorthon activities. Admiral Chairman, you both need to see this. Our analysis of the captured data shows that the Vorthons had detailed intelligence about Federation military capabilities. They knew exactly how weak the Federation's defenses were. Morrison looked at the data with growing understanding. They were planning to attack Federation space all along. The assault on the Zephyrians wasn't random violence. It was a test to see how the Federation would respond to a major threat. Chairman Veltar's face went pale as he realized the implications. You mean they were preparing for a full invasion of Federation territory? The data is pretty clear, Chang replied. They had target lists for over 50 Federation worlds, including the capital. If they had successfully eliminated the Zephyrians without resistance, the next phase would have been a coordinated attack on your core systems. Ambassador Kreetl's crystalline form pulsed with anger. You see, Chairman, my people were not just victims of random violence. We were test subjects for your destruction. While your council debated whether to help us, the Vorthons were studying your response to plan their real attack. The political implications hit Veltar like a physical blow. The Federation's refusal to help the Zephyrians had not been a neutral political decision. It had been a sign of weakness that nearly led to their own destruction. Admiral Morrison, Veltar said, his voice now carrying genuine respect instead of political courtesy. What would humanity require to consider a formal military alliance with the Federation? Morrison smiled. This was the conversation he had been hoping for. Chairman, humanity doesn't want to conquer the galaxy or build an empire. We're explorers and builders, not raiders like the Vorthons. But we also won't stand by and watch peaceful species get slaughtered by predators. What are you proposing? Veltar asked. A new kind of federation, Morrison replied. One that's willing to fight to protect its members. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and there are probably other threats out there besides the Vorthons. The peaceful species need protectors who understand how to deal with violence. Colonel Blake approached the group, still wearing his combat armor from the boarding actions. Admiral, the last of the Vorthon prisoners has been processed. We've got enough intelligence to track down their major bases and supply routes. If we move quickly, we can roll up their entire operation in this sector. Morrison nodded. Colonel, prep the fleet for extended operations. We're going Vorthon hunting. Chairman Veltar looked alarmed. Admiral, surely you don't intend to pursue them into their own territory? That could be seen as an act of aggression. Chairman, Morrison replied, his voice carrying the steel that had made him a successful military commander. The Vorthans have been committing acts of aggression against peaceful species for 3 centuries. The only reason they're still doing it is because nobody ever hit back hard enough to make them stop. Ambassador Kretal moved closer to the group, his light pulsing with determination. Admiral, my people would be honored to assist in this campaign. We may not be warriors, but we have knowledge of this region of space that could help your fleet, and the Federation will provide whatever support we can, Veltar added quickly. Supply ships, medical facilities, diplomatic cover if needed. Morrison looked out through the observation windows at his fleet, now being resupplied and reinforced by Federation vessels. The UES Valiant and her sister ships had been designed to defend Earth from threats in humanity's home system. Now they were about to become the spearhead of a campaign to liberate an entire region of the galaxy from a terror that had ruled unopposed for centuries. Gentlemen, Morrison said, 3 days ago, the galaxy believed the Vorthan horde was unstoppable. Today they're running scared from a species they had never even heard of. Tomorrow, we're going to show them what happens when you pick a fight with Deathworlders. The age of Vorthan dominance was ending. The age of human expansion had begun, and it would be built on a simple principle that the galaxy was only just beginning to understand. Sometimes the best way to protect the innocent is to be better at violence than those who would hurt them. Humanity had answered an SOS from strangers and found its destiny among the stars. The galaxy would never be the same.